Despite running to the other side of the world to seemingly escape everything Kendrick Lamar is up to, Drake has clearly stayed tuned into what's happening during Kendrick's victory lap for the ages. While Kendrick is building momentum for the Super Bowl and being celebrated for his recent Grammy success, Drake has designed an entire tour to act as if he's distracted and unbothered by Kendrick's achievements. However, recent revelations suggest this isn't the case at all. Through his entire Anita Max Winter Tour, Drake has shown that he's more bitter and upset than ever about Kendrick's soaring success. As Drake took the stage and the mic for the first time, it became apparent just how affected he is by Kendrick's current run. If Kendrick's journey can be called a victory lap, then what Drake is doing seems more like a defeat lap. But before we dive deeper into the embarrassment Drake has brought upon himself during his first full-on performance since the beef that changed everything, let's take a closer look at what's unfolding. Everything else has been saying, and even what the numbers are now indicating. At this point, it's not even a matter of opinion anymore. It's pretty much becoming fact. But according to Drake, his career is still intact. And with this tour, he seemingly tried to prove that no matter what has happened, from Kendrick's Like That verse shaking up the industry to the present moment, he has somehow survived all the attempts to take him down. In what can only be described as a bizarre attempt at symbolism, Drake took the stage wearing a tattered, hole-ridden shirt, clearly trying to send a message that he had been through it all and was still standing. But instead of coming off as triumphant, it only reinforced just how desperate he is to convince people that he hasn't lost. Drake wanted to make it clear that he had just come back from battle. And if the tattered shirt wasn't enough of a statement, he took things even further. In his own grand vision of survival, he added another dramatic touch, smoke billowing from his back as he took the stage, as if he had just walked away from the wreckage of war with his career still intact. But instead of looking triumphant, it came off as one of the most laughable ways anyone could have attempted a comeback, especially after taking what many consider the biggest L in rap beef history. For an artist of Drake's stature, this was meant to be a powerful statement, but instead, it only reinforced how out of touch he is with the reality of his situation. Drake wanted to make it clear that he had just come back from battle, and if the tattered shirt wasn't enough of a statement, he took things even further. In his own grand vision of survival, he added another dramatic touch, smoke billowing from his back as he took the stage, as if he had just walked away from the wreckage of war with his career still intact. But instead of looking triumphant, it came off as one of the most laughable ways anyone could have attempted a comeback, especially after taking what many consider the biggest L in rap beef history. For an artist of Drake's stature, this was meant to be a powerful statement, but instead, it only reinforced how out of touch he is with the reality of his situation. Because, well, if Drake had even a slightly different outcome in this entire situation, something other than the reality we're in now, maybe, just maybe, he could have pulled off a stunt like this. Even then, it still would have looked ridiculous, but at least there would have been some weight behind it. The problem is, when you actually know the reality of what went down, all of this just makes it even more cringe. We all know exactly how things played out, and no amount of smoke effects or tattered shirts can rewrite the fact that Drake walked away from this beef looking weaker than ever. And deep down, Drake knows it too. He didn't make it through anything, because you can't walk around with this kind of pride when you ran away from every challenge the moment things got too tough. And not only did he retreat, but he also reportedly filed paperwork over what went down in this back and forth, further proving that he was never built for a real battle in the first place. But beyond Drake's unintentionally hilarious entrance, the theatrics didn't stop there. He made sure to remind everyone that he's been in the game since 2008 and that, in his mind, he's still standing strong in 2025. The problem? We all know that's simply not true. While Drake might see himself as still being on top, the reality is that this entire performance only reinforced just how much things have changed, and not in his favor. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, as Drake finally returns to music after seemingly exhausting every other embarrassing option in the book, his first show as Anita Max Winter has made one thing abundantly clear. If this is what he's been planning as his big comeback, he might have made yet another miscalculation. With the pressure higher than ever and both the industry and fans growing increasingly tired of his antics, it's starting to look like Drake's strategy here is just as poorly thought out as his approach to the Kendrick Lamar beef. From start to finish, his performance only highlighted how drastically he has tarnished his own legacy, arguably faster than any other rapper in history. And if his previous It's All a Blur tour was any indication, with all its corny gimmicks, cheap theatrics, and embarrassing stunts, then somehow Drake has managed to take things to an even more ridiculous level. Whether it was dissing childish Gambino on a jumbotron or surrounding himself with over-the-top floating props, his last tour was already a spectacle. But if you thought that was bad, I have some unfortunate news. Because this entire show from Drake just took things to an entirely new level of absurdity. This show is going to remind you of one thing. No matter how many bad choices Drake makes or how much he disrespects the core foundation of hip-hop, it's becoming impossible not to just break out in laughter at his antics. Night one of his tour was no exception, as Drake did an incredible job of proving once again that he will always be Jimmy Brooks from Degrassi before anything else. And the reason I say this is simple. Despite all the hype and the way he tried to frame this tour as some kind of grand comeback moment, it only further exposed just how much his career has changed. He wanted to create a narrative where, despite all the conversations happening, like this very one, about his downfall following the Kendrick Lamar beef, he could still prove his dominance. But the reality is, after everything that went down, after all the embarrassment and the undeniable shift in public perception, Drake will never be the same. Or it was Drake rocking a Tony Montana jacket, desperately trying to come off as tough and edgy. The issue? No matter how legendary the character you're trying to channel may be, it completely falls apart when you're out there performing songs like Girls Want Girls in the same outfit. Whatever message he was attempting to send with that look was instantly lost the moment he started rapping about being a lesbian too. But beyond all the over-the-top theatrics and dramatic presentation that went into this show, clearly designed to make him look bigger and stronger than ever, the reality is, it did the exact opposite. Instead of cementing himself as an untouchable icon, Drake only reinforced just how much he struggled to hold on to his place in hip-hop. In reality, the only thing it accomplished was making him look like an even bigger loser than ever before. No matter how corny everything else about this performance was, if Drake had at least delivered a strong, undeniable set, he might have been able to walk away from this moment and this entire tour with a bit of the respect he lost. But instead, despite performing over 30 songs, including some of his biggest hits from an era when he was actually known for making quality music, the energy, the impact, and the dominance he once had just weren't there. Than before, his stage presence lacks the energy and charisma needed to command a massive audience. Instead of elevating his artistry, he continues to rely on gimmicks and nostalgia, making it painfully clear why he has never attempted a Super Bowl performance or a full stadium tour. The reality is that if Drake ever took on a stadium, whether you were up close or sitting in the nosebleeds, the lack of excitement in his set would have people checking their phones, zoning out, or even leaving early. And that's not an overstatement. It's exactly what happens when an artist refuses to evolve and bring something fresh to the stage. Drake's performances have become the exact opposite of what legends like MJ and Prince stood for. Those artists revolutionized live music with electrifying stage presence, intricate choreography, and true vocal mastery. Meanwhile, Drake, who claims to be the best rapper ever, barely puts in the effort to engage his audience, instead pacing back and forth while a speaker does most of the work for him. At this point, it's clear that he relies on his past hits and massive fanbase rather than delivering an actual performance worthy of his self-proclaimed status. If you're going to compare yourself to the greats, you need to back it up on stage, but Drake just isn't doing that. Or you simply expect an artist to actually rap or sing their own lyrics live, Drake's approach to performing is just lazy and uninspired. The fact that a new generation of artists has taken cues from this low-effort standard makes it even worse. At some point, live music became less about actual performance and more about just existing on stage while a backing track does all the work. And while some fans might not care, it's a huge letdown for those who expect artists to put in real effort. When legends like Michael Jackson, Prince, or even modern superstars like Beyoncé take the stage, they give it everything. Meanwhile, Drake just coasts, barely engaging with the crowd beyond a few ad-libs. For someone who constantly brags about being the greatest, his live shows tell a completely different story. It sounds like this video is really going in on Drake's current career moves, especially his performances and upcoming album. The creator is making a strong case that he's losing momentum, while artists like Kendrick and Tyler are pushing the bar higher. Do you agree with their take, or do you think Drake still has a stronghold in the industry?